Jerry agus Gerach. I'm here in Esker, in Athenry. It's a monastery we have here, and each day we have Mass at 10 o'clock. And because of the virus, it's a constant time of praying for everybody who's suffering and those who have died. And yesterday was particularly Centre Born Smuintir, and I was reminded of years gone by when I was growing up in Dundalk. My father, I heard telling the story how my mother was very much afraid of thunder and lightning. And Dad one time was on night duty, and the five of us were in the house when the thundering and lightning started, and we all rushed into my mother's bed, big double bed. I can recall it quite vividly, my mother talking, "Oh, that's desperate, it's only 5 miles away." And she was timing this number of seconds between the flash of lightning and the roll of thunder. So I visited it coming any minute to knock down the house. But somehow or other, in the company of my mother and the sprinkling of us all with holy water, I had some sort of peace and serenity. And looking back and trying to analyse it now, it wasn't that I saw my mother with this wonderful power, but just being who she was, someone who was so important, we could all gather around her, and she expressed with her loving arms around us experience of confidence that things will be all right. And it was that experience that hit me during the Mass, because in the spirit of prayer, in the spirit of the Eucharist, while we feel so helpless and sometimes can easily question, why does God allow this? There is underneath it all, if we have the faith to trust, to know God is with us, even in all of this pain and sorrow. So I look back in those days when I recall it with smiles and laughter with my sister, because she, and like myself too, my mother's fear rubbed off on us, and right up into my adulthood, I still was very much afraid of thunder and lightning. Now I've a little bit more understanding of it, and I don't fear it so much. But another little incident that came back to me during that Mass when I went down Bowness, which was one of my first missions. It was down in Waterford almost 50 years ago in St. John's Parish. A four weeks mission, and the preached mission was on. It was coming towards the end of that week. And I met this man in the church one night, and he told me how he had fallen out with the church. I don't know whether it was the parish priest or what, but that was the way he said he'd fallen out and it's given up practicing. And how coming home in his bicycle for the last week, he was passing by the church and he saw all the people gathered inside. So he said he thought it was time. He called quits. And then he made up. And he came into the church that night. It was at the Our Father of the Mass. And we were singing what was a very popular version, a melody from the Caribbean that suited the words of the Our Father, which repeated the phrase, "Hallowed be thy name, hallowed be thy name." And he said, I gained great peace and serenity. And I think, that this opportunity or this experience that we're all going through can be an opportunity for us to journey back into things that maybe we have thrown aside over the years. The practice of being with people in their prayer and in their worship, and realizing that they need my presence as well as they needing mine. So people are talking about praying and turning into the radio and journeying in, singing, listening to the Mass from all over the world and from all parts of Ireland. It's the one prayer of Jesus, wanting us all to be united in love, in forgiveness, in compassion, to die to selfishness, to rise with him to the life of generosity. Ska goradia banacht, or ingelir, ska artsa, peat, a wiltu. Skra magat.